All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling the music of creation. We're going deep into Tolkien's Ainulindalë, his whole creation myth thing. Now, for anyone out there who isn't familiar with the Ainulindalë, basically it describes how the world was created through music, like a symphony. But this symphony is composed by these angelic beings, these Ainur. And just to make things interesting, we have this rebellious composer, Melkor, who throws a wrench into the whole thing.
Oh yeah, he definitely shakes things up a bit.
So where do we even start with something this big?
Well, I think the natural starting point is with Ilúvatar. He's the one god, the ultimate source of all creation in Tolkien's world. And the Ainur are kind of like his first creations. They're these beings of pure thought and spirit.
Okay, so Ilúvatar gives them these musical themes, and they're supposed to, have a jam session, create this, cosmic orchestra.
Exactly. But it's not like a free-for-all from the get-go. It starts with each of them singing alone. Each Ainu only understands this little fragment of Ilúvatar's mind at first, like they each have a piece of a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And it's through their individual melodies that they slowly begin to understand each other and harmonize.
Wow. So they're literally creating harmony through music. That's deep.
It really is.
But then comes Melkor, who, like we said, decides to go rogue. I mean, what even drives him to disrupt this harmony? What's his goal?
Well, Tolkien describes Melkor venturing out into this void, this emptiness, searching for something he calls the flame imperishable. It's the source of creation itself, the ultimate power. But he can't find it because it only resides with Ilúvatar. And I think this failure is really telling. It reveals something, a kind of insecurity in Melkor.
So it's not just a power grid. There's something deeper going on here.
That seems to be the case. Because you see, his inability to find the flame imperishable, it suggests that Melkor, even though he's so powerful, he craves this validation of creation, a validation that only Ilúvatar can give. And so this craving fuels his envy, his desire to dominate, to prove his worth through control rather than, creation.
That's really interesting. So how does this insecurity, this envy, show up in the music? What does Melkor's rebellion sound like?
Well, the text describes him weaving these discordant melodies into the symphony. It's like he's trying to drown out the harmony. Tolkien calls it a sea of turbulent sound.
Wow, I bet the other Ainur were freaking out.
Oh, definitely. And some of them actually start to follow his lead.
I can only imagine the chaos.
It was probably pretty intense.
But Ilúvatar doesn't just shut Melkor down, right?
No, he doesn't.
Instead of silencing him, he responds with these new musical themes. And they're even more complex and even more beautiful than what came before.
Exactly. It's like Ilúvatar saying, you think you can disrupt my plan. I'll just incorporate your discord into something even grander. It makes you wonder, is there a purpose to Melkor's rebellion? Does it actually serve some greater good in the end?
It really does make you think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can any creation myth exist without that element of rebellion, that back and forth between order and chaos?
Oh, it's a fascinating question.
But then we get to the big reveal. The moment the music becomes something tangible, something real.
Yes. Ilúvatar shows the Ainur a vision of the world they've created through their music. It's the first time they actually see what they've been singing about this whole time.
And what's it like? Is it this perfect paradise, free from all of Melkor's mess?
Not exactly. They see the whole history of the world unfolding, right? With all of its beauty and all of its conflict. And here's where it gets really interesting. The vision, it includes the coming of elves and men. But those beings, they were not part of the original musical theme.
Oh, wow. So even the Ainur are caught off guard by this. This wasn't part of the plan, at least not a plan that they knew about.
It seems that way. It suggests that even within Ilúvatar's grand design, there's room for the unexpected. For things that weren't explicitly planned, it speaks to this infinite imagination, this ever-evolving nature of creation.
I love that. It's like even Ilúvatar is making things up as he goes along. So what's Melkor's reaction to all of this? Is he, humbled by this incredible vision, or does he just double down on his control freak tendencies?
Well, unfortunately, it's the latter. He sees this world, this Arda, and he immediately tries to lay claim to it. He wants to rule over it, over its future inhabitants.
So it's not enough for him to shape the world. He wants to own it, to control it.
Exactly.
And the text doesn't hold back when describing him. Tolkien gives us these really vivid descriptions of his form, almost like he's this embodiment of all the forces he's trying to unleash.
Oh, absolutely. It's like his very being is this expression of his destructive nature.
We're talking about a being of immense power, but also this deep-seated insecurity driving him.
Definitely. And it's a stark contrast to the other Ainur, the ones who choose to enter the world and become the Valar, the guardians of Arda.
Exactly. Now, just to catch our listener up, the Valar are essentially these powerful, like angelic beings who are drawn to that vision, that beautiful vision they witnessed, and they want to help make it a reality, you know?
Yeah, they're totally driven by a love for creation and this willingness to like sacrifice for it. They actually bind their power to the world. It becomes limited by the physical laws of the world, but they choose to enter it anyway.
That's a huge commitment. So they get to Arda, ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. But I'm guessing it's not all smooth sailing, especially with Melkor lurking around, right?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. The text actually describes this like incredible cosmic tug of war between Melkor and the other Valar. So they're building lands and he's destroying them. They're carving out mountains. He's throwing them down. They're creating these beautiful waterscapes. And he's trying to like corrupt them.
It sounds exhausting, honestly.
Oh, I bet it was.
But even though Melkor is this huge force for destruction, you said earlier that his actions aren't completely wasted. That's a bit of a head-scratcher for me. How can chaos and destruction lead to anything good?
Yeah, it's a complex idea. But Tolkien seems to suggest that even discord, even rebellion can serve a purpose, you know? Within Ilúvatar's grand design, nothing is truly wasted.
Interesting. So it's not like the Valar are just letting Melkor run wild, right? They're pushing back against him, against his chaotic influence.
Absolutely. And this is where the individual roles of the Valar come in. Each one has their own specific domain, a particular aspect of the world that they're shaping and protecting.
Like a specialty.
Exactly. For example, there's Ulmo, the Valar associated with water.
Oh, right. Ilúvatar actually calls out how Melkor tries to mess with Ulmo's work, right?
He does. He tries to destroy the beauty of Ulmo's creations, you know, his fountains and pools, with this bitter, cold, and moderate, as Tolkien puts it. But instead of being destroyed, Ulmo's creations become even more wondrous. The text talks about the beauty of snow, the intricate patterns of frost, none of which were actually part of Ulmo's original idea.
So Melkor kind of accidentally inspires Ulmo to create even greater things. That's pretty cool.
It is, and even Melkor's attempts to use like heat and fire against Ulmo backfire, resulting in these magnificent clouds, these ever-changing mists, and even the rain that gives life to the world.
It makes you wonder if, on some level, Melkor understands the role he's playing in all of this. Or is he just completely driven by this need to dominate, you know?
That's a great question, and it's one that Tolkien leaves open for interpretation. But we do know that Ulmo isn't working alone. He's got this close alliance with Manwë, who's considered the noblest of the Ainur. He's the one associated with the air and winds.
So they're like a cosmic tag team, using their combined powers to, like, counter Melkor's destructive impulses.
Precisely. They work together to establish a sort of balance, you know, a harmony within the chaos. And then, of course, there's Oli, the smith of the Valar. He's the one who shapes the very fabric of the earth, the mountains and valleys.
So we've got Ulmo with the water, Manwë with the air, and Oli with the earth. It's like a divine team of landscape architects.
I like that.
But I can't imagine Melkor makes their jobs easy.
Not at all. He's constantly trying to undo or corrupt what they create, and this leads to, you know, this epic struggle between order and chaos.
But despite all this, the Valar managed to create a place for the children of Ilúvatar, for elves and men to inhabit.
They do, yeah. And it's this world that's both beautiful and dangerous, a world where both good and evil can flourish.
Speaking of evil, we've talked a lot about Melkor's actions. But what about his motivations? Why is he so obsessed with dominating Arda? Is it purely a power trip, or is there something more to it?
Well, I think it goes back to that whole search for the flame imperishable, you know? He couldn't create life on his own, and that fueled this envy and this desire for control. It's like he's trying to make up for his inability to create by dominating what others have created.
That makes sense. He wants to rule over elves and men to force them to acknowledge his power.
Exactly. And this desire, it's reflected in his physical form. Remember, Tolkien describes him as this mountain that wades in the sea, clad in ice and crowned with smoke and fire. It's like his very being is this expression of his destructive nature.
And we haven't even gotten to the arrival of the elves and men.
I know, right? And their arrival adds a whole new dimension to the story.
And it's been quite the journey, hasn't it?
It really has. It's incredible how this one myth really lays the groundwork for his entire world.
Definitely. It's so much more than just a, how the world began story.
Oh, for sure. It gets into some really deep philosophical stuff about Well, creation itself and that ongoing process, the interplay between harmony and discord. What do you think?
Absolutely. And we left off with that epic struggle, between the Valar, those guardians of the world, and Melkor, who just seems determined to have things his way no matter what. But now we have a new element to consider, those elves and men.
Ah, yes, the children of Ilúvatar, their arrival. Well, that's a turning point in the story, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And what's so interesting to me is they weren't part of that original musical theme, the one revealed by Ilúvatar. They're a surprise even to the Ainur.
Exactly. Like, even they didn't see it coming, which suggests, to me at least, that even within this grand design, there's room for the unexpected. Ilúvatar's creation, it's not static, it's always evolving.
I like that. It leaves room for, well, maybe free will,
Right.
maybe even a little improvisation.
Ainulindalë lays the foundation. It establishes those core themes, light and darkness, creation and destruction, and the struggle for free will within this huge cosmic drama.
And it's all built on this idea of music. Music is this creative force. And it's not just about beautiful melodies. It's about discord and resolution, about the way different voices can come together to create something new.
It's true. It makes you think about our own world, doesn't it? If our world is also shaped by forces, both harmonious and dissonant, where do we fit in?
That's a big question. Are we just passive observers, just along for the ride? Or do we have the power to make choices that contribute to the good, to the beauty of creation?
That's the question, isn't it? I think Tolkien would want us to really wrestle with that idea. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect order, but understanding that complexity, even chaos, is part of this larger, ever-evolving design.
And that we all have a part to play in it.
Exactly. We each have a role.
Whether it's through, acts of kindness or creative expression or just, striving to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us, we can each contribute to the music of creation.
Beautifully said. And that's what makes this story so powerful, I think. It gives us a glimpse into the very heart of creation, and it invites us to find our own place in that grand symphony.
It really does. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ainulindalë, I think the biggest takeaway for me, and hopefully for our listeners too, is that even when faced with darkness and discord, there's always hope. There's always potential for beauty, for growth. And ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide how we'll participate in this incredible symphony of existence.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise.
And to our listener, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the music of creation. We hope you found it as insightful and thought-provoking as we have. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep creating your own music in the grand symphony of existence.